Hi, thank you for taking the time to watch this recording of our Finance and Funding webinar for international applicants for Bryan School's Master's and Graduate Certificate programs. I'm Jennifer Kiger Chapman. I'm the Assistant Director of Graduate Recruitment here at the Bryan School of Business and Economics. I work very closely with Ms. Savannah Martin, who is our other graduate recruiter, and we're essentially available to help students answer questions throughout the application and admissions process, but ultimately to get connected to their programs. Along the way, we receive many questions about the finance and funding options for graduate degree programs. So we've created this webinar as a way to help our applicants navigate that process. So a quick note about our information resources. This webinar was created by myself and Savannah, the Bryan Graduate Recruitment Team, as a resource for students interested in master's and certificate programs here at the Bryan School of Business and Economics. The presentation will focus on finance and funding options used by current Bryan graduate students. But if you'd like more information about any of the details and resources that we're talking about, we encourage you to reach out to the contacts listed on those slides because they'll know more and be able to help you. This is just a brief overview of the agenda of the webinar. First, I'll share about the Bryan School and a little bit about UNC Greensboro. Then I'll introduce Spartan Central, which is our hub of information for our current students. Then we'll go into our breakout room specifically for international applicants, discussing the tuition and billing process, as well as each and every finance and funding option used by current students. And lastly, we'll share advice from our current students with you. So let's go ahead and get started. So, the Bryan School of Business and Economics is just one of several colleges and schools on the campus of University of North Carolina, Greensboro. Here at the Bryan School, we have about 4,000 students, with about 3,500 of those being undergraduate students and close to 700 graduate students. We've been a business school for over 50 years, so as such, we have over 30,000 alumni, with 73% of them residing in the state of North Carolina. 73% of our enrolled students are either working full or part-time jobs. So if you find yourself in those positions, you'll be in very good company because a lot of our students are working while also in the program. While 94% of our students are from North Carolina, we do have a very healthy international population here on campus, and 39% of our students are enrolled in online programs. 94% is probably the number that we're most proud of here at the Bryan School. That's the percentage of master's students that are employed within 6 months of graduation. We have resources that are in place to really help our students achieve those types of results, such as our Bryan Graduate Career Coach and our Employer Relations Liaison. UNC Greensboro is designated as a minority serving institution. That's because more than half of our students come from a minority background. In fact, the Bryan School graduates more African American undergraduate business students than any other business school in North Carolina. UNCG was also ranked #1 in North Carolina for net cost by the New York Times in 2023. These are just a few more of our rankings. We've been ranked #1 part-time MBA in North Carolina by Fortune in 2024. We've been ranked #2 on campus MBA in all of the US as the greatest resources for minority students by the Princeton Review. #3 best online graduate computer IT program in North Carolina, and #2 online MBA in North Carolina for veterans. Both of those are by the US News and World Report. While you are likely interested in a specific program, I just want to take a moment to mention all of the academic programs that we have. We offer 6 master's and 18 graduate certificate programs here at the Bryan School, starting off first with the MBA program led by Tuisha Fernandez-Stack and their graduate certificates in Business Foundations and Marketing. We also offer a Master of Science in IT and Management, which is also a STEM designated program for those students who are seeking one of those. That program also offers 8 graduate certificates and is led by Mr. Alan Rogers. Jess Bankhead, who is also a CPA, leads our Master of Science in Accounting program as well as their graduate certificate in taxation. Dr. Jen Su leads the Master of Science in Retail Studies program and their 3 graduate certificates. Dr. Martijn van Hasselt leads the Master of Arts in Applied Economics program and their 3 graduate certificates. And Dr. Vladislav Maximov leads the Master of Science in International Business program, as well as their Global Leadership and Strategy certificate. It's important to note that, those last two programs that I mentioned are only available online, but if you're an international student seeking to study on campus with us here in the US, we can absolutely chat with you about your options to study both economics and international business while in an on campus program. So just let us know. I'd also love to introduce you to our Bryan School graduate ambassadors. You can learn more about them and watch an introductory video from each of them by visiting bryan.uncg.edu/grad ambassadors. These are great representatives of their program. They've been nominated by their program directors and have volunteered their service to help answer your questions. There are also a number of international students in this group, so if you're looking for a student who's here as an ambassador from maybe from your country or from your region of the world, feel free to check this out and reach out to them if you have questions. And then lastly, before we move on to the webinar, just want to mention that we offer monthly application webinars, graduate student panels, and virtual information sessions so that you can learn more about our programs and the admissions and application process. And what's I think worth of note here is that if you attend one of our virtual information sessions, you can earn an application fee waiver by attending the live session. You can also earn a waiver by watching recordings of the webinar, this finance and funding webinar, as well as the virtual info session, and then completing a brief survey. Our graduate recruitment team is available every single day to help answer your questions, obviously by phone or email, but then also we offer one-on-one meetings daily and recruiter Q&A sessions, which do not require advanced registration. You can just drop in and ask your questions any day. You can learn more about all of these events and register for them by visiting go.uncg.edu/BryanGrad. Now on to our finance and funding presentation. First up, I'd like to introduce you to Spartan Central. As you can see here in the upper right-hand corner, there's a link to visit spartancentral.uncg.edu. But Spartan Central is essentially the primary source of information for all UNC Greensboro students. In fact, much of the information I'm about to share in this webinar came from Spartan Central, and you can look for more information there. It has information about tuition rates and fees, payment plan options, course registration, academic calendars, financial aid options, visa requirements, and a whole lot more. So you're welcome to search these resources. If you have any trouble finding what you're looking for, don't hesitate to reach back to myself or Savannah, and we can help guide you into the right direction. Now it's time to go into the breakout room and share specifically information for our international applicants about our finance and funding options. First up, we're going to talk about tuition and billing. Essentially, the four key pieces of information that our international applicants are typically looking for and need to know when navigating this process. Number one is the estimated cost of their program and the living expenses. They also need to know what the minimum funds that are needed for their I-20 so that they can qualify for that document and go through the visa process. They need to have an understanding of the timeline of payments and when they'll be due and what all of their available funding options are. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. And first up, we'll be talking about the estimated cost of the program as well as living expenses. So UNC Greensboro is a publicly funded institution. That's because the state of North Carolina actually subsidizes the cost of tuition for people who are residents of North Carolina. We use something called the North Carolina Residency Determination Status Service, to determine residency status. And you can learn more about this service by visiting ncresidency.org. There are three tuition rate categories. One is in-state, is out of NC, and the other is out of state. It's important to note that for those who are in-state are typically those who are residing here in North Carolina already, and you must complete the RDS survey to qualify for this rate. There's also the out of North Carolina rate that's typically available for students studying online and outside of the state of North Carolina. But typically, most of our international applicants or students who are using an F1 visa will pay the out-of-state tuition rate. So that's the one you should be paying attention to when you're looking for your tuition costs. It is possible, however, once you're enrolled and in the program to get reclassified. So keep that in mind. If you come in as an out of state student and then you stay here for at least a year, you could potentially qualify for a different tuition rate category later. Now, if you are looking to calculate your tuition rate and you want to use the information available to you at Spartan Central, which is this chart here, which can be a little bit complicated, it's important to note that you're going to need several key pieces of information. So, in order to calculate your total program cost, you'll need to know your study format, your residency status, the total required credit hours for your specific program, and how many credits you'll be taking each semester. So, needless to say, it can be a little bit complicated when you're trying to calculate this yourself. And this is why we share the estimated program costs on our webpage and in the following slide. But I just wanted to make a note and share this. If you wanted to try to calculate it yourself, you have access to that information. I'd also like to note that students of the Bryan School of Business and Economics, specifically graduate students who are enrolled in our master's level programs, will pay an additional tuition differential per credit hour of enrolled credit. This is to pay for additional services that help lead to the success of our students in our programs, such as the career coach that you get, professional development opportunities, such as the Truest Emerging Leader Certificate, business partnerships, alumni connections, and so much more. So keep that in mind. If you're using this to calculate your tuition, you'll want to keep in mind your tuition differential. Now, an easier way to navigate your program costs is to check our program website. And you can do that by visiting bryan.uncg.edu/programs. The page looks a lot like this. And for this example, I'll be sharing about the MBA program. So once you click on the Master of Business Administration, you'll select your program. It pulls up the program page. And you may notice that there are tabs along the top of that page. You'll want to click the tab that says Program Costs. That will then bring up the specific detailed view of the estimated program cost for your program of interest. For your convenience, we've also brought them into this presentation here on the screen. And I'm going to circle the out-of-state rates for those on-campus students. So as you can see, for the MBA program, the total estimated program cost is $63,500. For the Master of Science in IT and Management program, it's $35,500. For the Retail Studies program, it's $43,500. And for the accounting students, and typically our international accounting students will also take a couple of additional prerequisite courses, and that total estimated program cost is $49,500. So hopefully this helps to kind of demystify the tuition rates and the estimated costs of the program. And as I mentioned earlier, international students will typically pay the out-of-state tuition rate if they're here on an F1 visa. Now on to housing and living expenses. We do have some available housing here on campus at UNC Greensboro, and you can learn more about that by clicking the link within the presentation, which is available for download on the same webpage that you're viewing this webinar. The estimated cost of annual housing for, according to Housing and Residence Life, is between $7,400 and $9,500 each year. Health insurance costs are between $800 and $2,800. And health insurance is a requirement of students studying on campus, and you can learn more about those requirements and available options on the graduate school's website. And then there's your meal plan. We do have an unlimited meal plan here on campus that's available for $4,200 per year, but you are not required to take part in the meal plan. And if you would instead like to purchase groceries on your own, you can do that, but the cost would be probably pretty similar, just depending on your personal needs. So in total, for housing and living expenses, you should plan to have an additional $12,400 to $16,500 per year for housing and living expenses. Now on to the minimum funds needed for your I-20. Now this is a different amount, and it's important to note that this amount can be different from the amount of estimated tuition or the amount of actual tuition that you'll pay in a given year, which is why we talk about it separately. Essentially, the visa process will begin once you're admitted to your program. Step one will be to work on getting your Form I-20. Second, you will make it a visa appointment. Third, you'll attend your counselor interview appointment. And then step four, you will review and return your visa foil for accuracy. You can learn more about this step-by-step process and everything involved with it by visiting global.uncg.edu/international-students/visa-information. And of course, you can just click it from within the presentation that's available for download on this web page. But as part of that process, you'll be asked to submit some financial documents. So the financial documents are to certify that you have enough available financial resources to support a full course of study for one academic year, and this number is determined by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. The minimum budget for the year 2023 was $41,283, and this can change depending on if you're planning to bring dependents over. There might be an additional amount that you'll need to show. So the documents that that you will be asked for once you're admitted are the graduate financial certificate, a bank statement, the affidavit of support, and a copy of your passport. All of those are available within your online application portal or via the website that's linked right here. You'll also note in the upper right-hand corner of this slide the contact information and hours of our Global Engagement Office, who is available to help you through every step of the way. You can also click this link right on the slide to schedule a virtual appointment with them to ask them your questions. Now on to the timeline of payments due. So, in order to talk about financial aid and scholarships, graduate assistantships, and things like that, you need to understand the calendar of when things will be due. So, in order to do that, we need to do an admissions overview. So, first up, once you submit your application and complete it, your application actually will go into a holding bin where the admissions committee will then review it once you've completed and submitted all your documents. Typically, it takes between 2 and 4 weeks for the committee to get an application decision back to you. Hopefully, you get the admissions decision that you're looking for. You'll receive an email notification about that. And then within a few days, you'll start to get emails about your next steps. So at that point, your next steps are typically to submit your intent to enroll, to meet with your academic advisor, and to start scheduling your courses. This is typically done by term, and I'll share a calendar about that in the next slide. Then, once you have all of that done, you'll submit your financial documents, getting your I-20, and then you'll start receiving your fee bill. Again, this is by term. And then lastly, your semester will begin. A lot of students ask us about the scholarship and graduate assistantship timeline, so I want to note that you can actually receive a notification about a scholarship or graduate assistantship at some point between the admissions notification and the semester beginning. And in some cases, students have found out about graduate assistantships after the semester has begun. That's because if we've given a graduate assistantship to someone who, for instance, wasn't able to get their visa or come over in time to start classes, then we might have additional available funds. So if you don't see information about a scholarship or a graduate assistantship in your admissions letter, that's okay, because that's typically not where the notification happens. It actually happens separately and later on. So just because it's not mentioned in your admissions letter doesn't mean that you didn't get one. It just means that it's a separate process here at UNC Greensboro. So here's an overview of that timeline, and we'll talk first about spring enrollment. So the spring application opens typically on July 1st, and those applications are received through November 15th. After that point, you'll receive your decision, and then course registration will begin and go through the end of the year. Fee bills will also begin going out as you've registered for your courses. We do offer summer enrollment here at UNC Greensboro. However, we only offer online courses in this summer. Therefore, summer enrollment is not suitable for international students who are looking to study on campus because you would need to maintain full-time enrollment in an on-campus program. And we just don't offer that in the summer. So for international students, you should be looking at spring or fall enrollment. So the fall enrollment timeline, the application start time and date is the same as in the spring. July 1st is when we start receiving applications and it opens up. And then you have your priority application deadline for the fall. Your final deadline is June 15th, but your priority deadline is March 1st. So if you're interested in getting priority consideration for scholarships or graduate assistantships, we strongly recommend applying as early as possible and at the very least by the priority deadline. After that point is when course registration begins, and fee bills are typically released in late June and then throughout the month of July and August. Another note about the timeline. So your fee bill will include only the tuition amount for the enrolled courses that you're scheduled for. So if you're not enrolled in any courses, you won't get a fee bill, which it kind of highlights the importance of going and following the timeline that I shared a few slides ago, which is confirming your intent to enroll, meeting with your academic advisor, and then scheduling courses, because that is when you'll get your fee bill once you enroll in those courses. You must be admitted, confirm your enrollment, and go through advising before you can enroll in courses and receive a fee bill. And you must have a fee bill before your scholarships and financial aid can be applied. So you can see all of this kind of builds on each other on the prior step. So once you do get a fee bill, it's released to UNC Genie, which is a system that you will get your login information once you're admitted to your program, and it's included in that program welcome email. So keep an eye out for that. If you have questions about the actual dates or deadlines of any of these, we encourage you to visit the cashier's website, which is csh.uncg.edu, which is also within Spartan Central. We also would like to include the cashiers and student accounts office information here and their availability. You can reach out to them if you have any specific questions about anything that I've mentioned so far. All right, and now on to what you were hoping to hear about when you logged into this webinar, which is the finance and funding options. So myself and Savannah, we are not financial aid experts. And so we thought, who should we go to get this information? Well, we reached out to our currently enrolled Bryan graduate students, and an overwhelming number of them responded to our survey and shared how they were paying for their program. And so we, in turn, wanted to share that information with you. At the top of this chart, you'll notice that there is a good number of students that are paying for their program via direct payment, about 50% of our students. And then another third of them, about a 31%, are in a monthly payment plan, and that includes some of our students with graduate assistantships, and I'll talk about that in just a little bit. But this color here at the top, the gray, is typically those direct payment options. The gold payment options are typically loans or borrowed funds that you would then pay back at a later date. As you can see, about 1/3 of our students are using US federal loans, but then we do also have some international non-US government lenders and a few international folks using our international lender. And then in blue here are the percentages of students who are receiving some form of scholarship or graduate assistantship or some other assistance. And this is assistance in blue that they do not have to pay back. So there's a fair number of students here. 11% of them got a Bryan School graduate assistantship, 4% got a UNC Greensboro campus-wide, scholarship, I misspoke. Then there's another 5% who are receiving external scholarships. Then we have the graduate assistantships. So the Bryan School graduate assistantships go to about 13% of our students, and another 5% are enrolled in a campus-wide graduate assistantship. We also have some employer-funded students, both partial and fully funded, and then there's some students that receive military assistance. So we're going to go over each and every one of those options right now. First up is direct payment, and you can learn more about this by visiting the cashier's office. But essentially, you can pay your fee bill via credit card, electronic check or bank draft, mail via check or money order, in person by cash, check, and money order payments, or by international bank transfer. Direct payments can be made through UNC Genie, which is that system that you get access to once you're admitted to the program and confirm your plans to attend. Next up are the payment plans and deferrals. The first of which is the graduate assistantship deferral plan. So if you receive a graduate assistantship and you want to make payments as you get paid through your graduate assistantship, you can email the cashier's office directly to request these payment plans, and they can help you set that up. We do also just have a regular payment plan, which will break up your tuition over 5 payments or 4 payments over the course of the semester. Each of those requires a deposit, and these options do have a $40 setup fee. Next up is private loans. These are typically credit-based loans offered by private lenders to help students finance their degree program. They usually require a good credit history and or a cosigner, so keep that in mind. They can also be more costly than federal education loans, and there are limited options for international students, which is why we partner with Prodigy Finance, who is our international lending partner for UNC Greensboro here at the Bryan School. Prodigy Finance can be used by international students who are enrolled in a full-time on-campus program. The three approved Bryan graduate programs are the MBA program, the Master of Science in IT and Management, and the Master of Science in Accounting. The benefit of Prodigy is that you can apply through their online application, and their loans do not require a cosigner or any collateral. These loans can also be used for tuition and living expenses. So if you'd like more information, please reach out to them via the phone number and email address on this slide or visit their website, prodigyfinance.com. There is a direct link to their online application from within the presentation, and you can just click that to go right on through to their website. In addition to loans, Prodigy also offers scholarship opportunities. One is the Allen and Gil Gray Foundation for African Student Scholarship. They awarded 3 prizes this year, 5,000 each, and you do not have to be a loan customer in order to receive a scholarship. So keep that in mind. If you're interested, you can visit their website for more information. They also have one general scholarship each year that you can learn more about on their website. In addition to Prodigy Finance, international students have also used other loan companies. It's important to note that most other companies will require a U.S. citizen to co-sign on your loan application, and that co-signer will ultimately be responsible for repaying your student loan should you default on payments. So make sure you discuss all of your options thoroughly with a trusted friend or family member before you apply for student loans. Some of the student loan companies that have been used by international students include Access Group, Sallie Mae, American Education Services, and Wells Fargo. Now I'd like to share about our scholarships. So UNC Greensboro and the Bryan School award scholarships. However, these opportunities are limited and highly competitive. All incoming students are considered for Bryan School scholarships based on their graduate program application. So there is no separate scholarship application for Bryan School scholarships, and the fall priority application deadline is March 1st. If you're interested in spring enrollment, there is no priority application deadline for the spring. We just recommend that you apply as early as possible. Now, for those fall applicants, although March 1st is the priority application deadline, all applications, regardless of when they're submitted, will receive scholarship and funding consideration. But for the best consideration opportunities, we recommend submitting and completing your application as soon after the priority application deadline as possible. Scholarship decisions are made after admissions decisions. So, as a reminder, if you get your admissions letter and it doesn't mention a scholarship, that's okay. None of the admissions letters mention a scholarship. That notification happens at a different time. Typically, scholarships will range between $500 and $2,500, and they are renewable. Now, once you're admitted, you also have the opportunity to apply for additional scholarships through Scholarship Universe, which is our UNC Greensboro scholarship portal. After being admitted and confirming your plans to attend, you'll be able to use your UNCG credentials to log in and create a profile to apply for additional scholarships. Now, I'd like to talk about Bryan School graduate assistantships. A graduate assistantship is the opportunity to earn a stipend while working on campus up to 18 hours per week. Example positions include research assistant, marketing or recruitment assistant, or administrative assistant. Savannah and I actually work with a team of 4 GAs who are very helpful in helping us with our recruitment efforts and in helping students with the application process. The average stipend for our graduate assistantships here within the Bryan School is $3,500 per semester. Keep in mind that these positions are limited and highly competitive, and the fall priority application deadline is March 1st. We do not have a priority application deadline for spring enrollment. We just recommend that you apply as early as possible. Please note that Bryan School graduate assistantships decisions are made after the admissions decision, and notifications are sent all throughout the year, so there is no particular schedule. So the earlier you apply, the earlier you can get admitted, and the earlier you can be considered for ongoing graduate assistantships and those decisions that are made. We get asked a lot about how many graduate assistantships there are to go around. So I just want to share a few numbers there. So in 2022-23, the Bryan School received 210 graduate assistantship requests. Of those, 28 were awarded, and this included returning students. So about 1 in 10 students who qualify for a graduate assistantship will receive one. That's just for Bryan School graduate assistantships, however. And again, you apply for a Bryan School graduate assistantship within the online application. There's a question that will say, are you interested in a graduate assistantship? And you'll say yes, and then you'll be able to move on with the application. However, once you're admitted to your program, you can also apply for other campus-wide graduate assistantships through Spartan Talent, and you can visit and see what options there are by going to spartantalent.uncg.edu. In addition to a graduate assistantship, there are other employment opportunities for international students that you may not be aware of. In fact, international students are eligible to work in any student-facing on-campus position. You can apply for these once you're admitted through Spartan Talent website or by visiting Handshake, which is another website that you'll get access to once you're admitted and confirm your plans to enroll. Example positions there include administrative support, tech support assistant, cafe associate, maybe in the cafe or an eatery here on campus, or bookstore associate. After 1 year of enrollment, international students may also be eligible for off-campus employment, and more information about that is available at the Global Engagement Office's website. Now, the Global Engagement Office does a lot to help our international students, and in fact, they've created additional scholarship resource for international applicants who are interested in those options. You can click on the link within the presentation and download that guide to review the additional scholarship and funding sources. Lastly, we did ask our students what they wish they had known before going through and enrolling in the program about finance and funding, and they shared some advice. So I'd like to kind of share that with you now, and I'll allow you to read these on your own time. So if you need to pause the presentation and read them, they're sharing feedback about the scholarships, graduate assistantships, general advice, and of course, you can always reach out to those graduate student ambassadors if you have any questions and want to ask them about anything in particular. Lastly, myself and Savannah are available to help answer any and all additional questions that you have, so please don't hesitate to reach out. In our presentation slide deck, you'll notice that there are links to all of the resources that we just talked about. And you can always reach us by visiting bryangrad.uncg, bryangrad@uncg.edu. Thank you for taking the time to learn more about our programs. We're honored to be considered for your graduate studies, and I truly hope that this webinar has been helpful in helping you prepare and learn about all of the different finance and funding options. Thank you. I hope you have a great rest of your day.